Gen friends, I'm Major Gaurav Arya and you're watching the CHANAKYA Dialogues English. And China is the only country in the world which has a border with 12 nations but has a dispute with 24 nations. How can you have a dispute with a nation with whom you do not share a border? Enough damage is caused and Russia collapses. So their end game is the collapse of Russia or the breakup of Russia. India's end game is peace. Gen friends, I'm Major Gaurav Arya and you're watching the CHANAKYA Dialogues English. Like this video, subscribe to our channel and don't forget to press the bell icon, especially those of you who watch our videos every day. We've got all the reports. You watch our videos, you love our videos, but you do not subscribe and do not press the bell icon. Please do so. This is our request to you. Now, G20 is the biggest thing on the diplomatic scene that has happened to India in India. I mean, India has never been host to such a massive diplomatic event like G20. Of course, there have been other events, non-diplomatic, in the sense of sporting events. There have been the Asian Games in the 80s, there have been the Commonwealth Games more recently, and so many other big events. But G20 is the big daddy of them all, and it's happening from 8th to 10th. So the President of the United States, Joe Biden, is going to come on the 7th, and Putin is not coming. We've already discussed that in the previous episode. Putin is not coming because the International Court of Justice has an arrest warrant out. Can you imagine? An arrest warrant out for the president of Russia. This is how funny it can get. And there are other things also. We'll come to that bit a little later, but here is the rundown of what is actually happening. The Indian Air Force is trying to land helicopters on hotel roofs. There are Rafales, there is air defense cover all over Delhi. There are commandos, there is NSG. There is this very strict and very, very strong security blanket all around Delhi because you have more than 24 world leaders coming here, including the President of the United States. And nothing can go wrong. Nothing should go wrong. And the government of India will do whatever it can to sort of ensure that there is watertight and foolproof security. Now, there are 2-3 things, first of all. Number one, I will not call it a lockdown, but severe restrictions have been placed for 2 days, right? And because of these restrictions, a lot of opposition parties are saying, no, how can you do this? How can you lock down Delhi? It's not technically a lockdown, but yes, there are very serious restrictions. Businesses will have to be shut and offices will be shut, etc. And that's okay. And the reason why it's okay is, why? In any country, if you have such a major event in a city, parts of those cities are always put under severe restrictions. Many of these heads of state, they would be on the hit list of terror organizations, many of them. And you can't take a risk. I mean, it happens, come on, let's understand. I don't know why these political parties are protesting so much, unnecessarily. I think unnecessarily they're making a mountain of a molehill. Imagine this. Let's say there is a wedding at your place. And all Indians who are watching this would know if there is a wedding happening at your place, there'll be relatives all over your house. And your movement will be severely restricted. The elders of the family will tell you, don't move out. Don't go, don't meet your friends for these 2-3 days. Sit at home, do work. That happens in almost every Indian home. This is how it happens. When there is a wedding, all hell breaks loose and there is a little bit of confusion and, no, actually there's lots of confusion, but but there are restrictions placed. You can do this, you can't do this, and this is what you have to do. And this is when that person will come, go to the station, receive him, go to the airport, receive this person, drop him off, do this and that. There are a million things to be tied up. And yes, there is inconvenience. Let's be honest about it. There is inconvenience. Here, more than 24 heads of state will descend upon New Delhi. If we can accept inconvenience when there is a wedding at our home, why can't we accept 2 days of inconvenience, or 3 days of inconvenience maximum, if so many VVIPs from all over the world are coming in India? They're coming here. It's a matter of great pride, honor. It's a huge privilege, to be the presiding nation of G20. So I think we should just simply stop cribbing about small little things, especially the political parties. Don't do politics with the nation, do politics with your petty things. Don't always, punch above your weight and try to, sound big, talk big, that don't do this and don't do that. There are some things that have to be done. Let's accept it and let's move ahead. Now, coming to the next thing, whether Xi Jinping is going to come or not, nobody knows. He's playing hide and seek with the rest of the world. And I don't know why Xi Jinping is saying, or China is not committing whether Xi Jinping will come or not. See, it won't make much of a difference. I'll be very honest with you. Today, China stands isolated. And I'll tell you why. While the world is dependent upon China, and I'm making this statement with a great deal of responsibility, please allow me to amplify and explain. While the world is dependent upon China, China is still the factory of the world. China still supplies the majority of the stuff that the world buys and uses, from washing machines to cars to motorcycles to heavy machinery to everything. I mean, it's the manufacturing hub of the world. And we can't deny that. But the fact of the problem is that China has disputes with almost 24 nations. And many of those nations are attending. I'm just talking about border disputes. I'm not talking about trade disputes or national security disputes. I'm talking about hardcore border disputes. And China has border disputes with 23, 24 nations. And China is the only country in the world which has a border with 12 nations, but has a dispute with 24 nations. How can you have a dispute with a nation with whom you do not share a border? You can't have a border dispute if you don't share a border. But apparently China does. Now, the thing is that, Xi Jinping, if he comes, great. And if he does not, well, he doesn't then. The world moves on. But today, the reason why I said China is isolated is that, Vietnam has, been very harsh in its criticism for China's maps. And they say that we reject your map outright. Remember those maps we spoke about, in which China said South China Sea is ours and Taiwan is ours and Arunachal is ours? India already gave them a kick. Now the Vietnamese have given them a kick. The Taiwanese are giving them a kick. All throughout the world, you see, the world needs China, but the world does not respect China. A part of the world, not the entire world, but a part of the world also fears China. China is a predator. You don't like predators. You don't love predators, right? But you have to tolerate them because in many, if I can put it idiomatically, in many lakes, in many ponds, China is the biggest crocodile. Not in all, but in many. So you have to live with the biggest crocodile, which is what most smaller countries are doing. It is only countries like India, bigger countries that, step up and say that thus far and no further, and we'll hit you back. So China backs off. But this is not possible for every country to do now. With the G20 also, the Tibetans will protest. Let me be very honest about this. The Tibetans will protest, and this is something that Xi Jinping may not be willing to face. Because time and again they've said a head of state will come and, you should not embarrass him by allowing the Tibetans. We cannot allow or disallow the Tibetans. India is a free country and the government does not allow or disallow. If the Tibetans wish to protest, they will protest. As long as it is a peaceful protest, nobody can stop them. And nobody should stop the Tibetans. It's their right to protest. And plus, they are the aggrieved party. They are the wronged party. They are the victims, not the Chinese. The Han Chinese are invaders. They're aggressors. And I'm talking about the Han Chinese. Because nobody ever protested when they took East Turkmenistan. They did not protest when Tibet was gobbled up. They've chewed up parts of Mongolia. They are a predatory power. And of course, the Tibetans will protest. And I would tell my Tibetan brothers and sisters, please do protest if Xi Jinping comes. If he does not, if his premier comes, protest in front of his premier. Whichever Chinese comes, protest. I would also tell my Tibetan brothers and sisters, one more thing. Don't just wait for the Chinese president to come, or the Chinese premier to come, or the vice premier, whoever is coming, I don't know. There are Chinese companies in India. Please protest outside these Chinese companies, because you never know which one is owned by the PLA. You don't know which one. There are holding companies within holding companies. You can never know the true ownership of a large Chinese company. You don't know who's holding what, who has how many shares, and who's controlling what. Maybe, I'm saying maybe, behind all these mobile phone companies and electronics companies which are there in India, Chinese companies I'm talking about, you never know. It could be the PLA behind them, controlling shares with the PLA. It's very possible. PLA has so many companies. PLA is also a business enterprise. Apart from a fighting machine, it's also a business enterprise. So I would request my Tibetan brothers and sisters, please protest against these Chinese companies. right? And I will one day appeal to my Indian brothers and sisters who work for Chinese companies. I have another message for you, and this is a request from a fellow Indian with folded hands. I can only request you, and I will request you, but today is not that day. But I will certainly make a video in which I will request you what I'd like you to do and what I'm requesting you to do vis-a-vis Chinese companies in India. All right. Now, Sheikh Hasina, there is a threat to her life. That is what media reports say, that some people could try and do something, some sort of an attack maybe. We are not sure what it is. Different people are saying different things. So till firmer reports come out, we are not in a position to say that, what is going to happen. But yes, there are threats. There are always threats here. There are always threats. I mean, whenever some head of state goes, there are threats. And that is why they have such exhaustive security detail. I mean, it's all there all the time. And we have sniffer dogs, and you have bomb squads, and you have commandos, and you have medical teams, you have blood in the sense of the head of state's same blood, type kept there. You have a special oxygen chamber. You have so many things that, travel with the head of state. You have specialists, communication specialists. So there is an entire ecosystem that travels with any head of state because they are under threat. But touch wood, I hope, with everybody's blessings and support, G20 is going to be a massive, massive success. India has pulled out all the stops. And I saw television images yesterday of, I remember I told you in the beginning, this helicopter landing on the roof of a hotel. That was fascinating. That's very cool Hollywood stuff. So I really like seeing it. So ladies and gentlemen, what is happening is that, Russia has praised India's unifying role in this entire G20. And it has slammed the West for politicizing G20 as far as the Ukraine is concerned. So they said West should not do it. But Russia has indeed praised India and said that India is playing a unifying role, which is what Prime Minister Modi says, stop this war, stop all this nonsense. And this is also a message. Prime Minister Modi's words are also a message to the West. You can't stop the war by giving weapons to Ukraine. You see? Which means that you don't want the war to stop. You want to break Russia. And that's not going to happen anytime soon. That's not Russia. The Soviet Union was broken once into many pieces. And now it's not about to break again. It won't happen. So West should stop doing that. Stop giving weapons to Ukraine. And get all these guys to sit down. Russia, Ukraine, China, India, maybe a couple of NATO countries, and say that, stop. In fact, Vivek Ramaswamy, the candidate, the Republican candidate for presidency of the United States, he's fighting elections. He mentioned this. He's a very sharp guy, this Vivek Ramaswamy. And he says that, they asked him, how will you end this conflict? And he said that, listen here, we need to ensure that there is no defense pact between Russia and China. That will be a major threat for the world. You get Russia to de-link from China, and how do you do that? You have a new line where you accept where Russia has come till in Ukraine. That's number one. If that happens, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be a massive, massive policy shift, because Vivek Ramaswamy is not going to give weapons to the Ukrainians then. That's what I assume, if he becomes president. If. It's a very big if, but if he does, he's not giving weapons to Ukraine. That's number one. Number two, what he's talking about is hard guarantees to Russia that Ukraine will never be accepted into NATO. What else does Russia want? If this happens, the war is over. It's pretty much over. Because the more you push Russia, the more it goes into the Chinese embrace. And the more it goes into the Chinese embrace, these two countries together, independently they may be handled. Together they are formidable, and it will become very, very difficult for the West, extremely difficult for the West to, then fight with this combined. In another news, there are media reports which say that Ukraine could be on the agenda between Prime Minister Modi and President Joe Biden, because Joe Biden is landing on the 7th and he's here for 3 days in India, 4 days in India, and maybe beyond also. And, this is one thing that they could talk about on the sidelines. They could talk about, because see, both countries want separate things. India wants the war to end. US wants Russia to be defeated. There is a difference. There is a huge difference in what, and it is this difference that India is trying to bridge. And India is saying the first thing you should do is stop violence. Communication can happen later. You first stop fighting, and then we'll talk. right? Stop fighting right now. And this Russia has been told, Ukraine has been told, everybody's been told. The problem is that the West is constantly arming Ukraine, hoping that something happens, enough damage is caused, and Russia collapses. So their end game is the collapse of Russia or the breakup of Russia. India's end game is peace, which is why we need to talk to the West and tell them that, this is not happening anytime soon. Now, having said this, I'll take you quickly to Pakistan, where in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, there has been a massive suicide blast, ladies and gentlemen. 9 soldiers are dead and more than a dozen have been injured, and many of them critically so. And I'm given to believe by Pakistani social media that the injured are far more than what is being revealed. Some social media reports are saying that more than 25 to 30 soldiers have been injured, many of them critically, but we are not going to sort of quote those unsubstantiated reports to you. So we are only sticking to formal media reports. Now, what happened was that you had a motorcycle-borne suicide bomber, right? Packed with explosives. He goes in the middle of all the soldiers and presses the button, and he goes boom, and he takes all these soldiers. You see, ever since America has left Afghanistan, all the Pakistanis were celebrating. You heard Imran Khan's speech in which he spoke about how the Afghans have broken the shackles of slavery and now they are a free nation, etc., etc. Now, apparently not so. The Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, which is roughly the same thing as the Afghan Taliban, whether people like it or not, whether people agree or disagree, it's pretty much the same thing. And they have been killing Pakistani soldiers. I mean, the total number of attacks is in 3 figures now. It's in 3 figures, which means that over 100 attacks have, some say more than 250 attacks have already happened, big or small. And every day Pakistani soldiers are dying. Yesterday's attack was a particularly vicious one. And this is not going to stop. They've taken responsibility. They've said, yes, we were the ones who've attacked, and we'll attack you more and more. And we're not stopping anytime soon. So ladies and gentlemen, with this, I come to the end of today's video. If you like this video, press the like button. Subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to press the bell icon. Jai Hind, Vande Mataram, Bharat Mata Ki Jai.